Hey guys, and welcome to the lore ranking video. No, we aren't ranking the lore of Final Fantasy VI, we are ranking the lores of Final Fantasy VI. B-Dude is too stupid to do story documentary style videos. That is why he is stuck doing biased rankings on things most people don't even consider using in a game in an attempt to spread information and perspectives on mechanics in said game. Tangent aside, we should hurry up because there's a chance the character we're going to be looking at is going to keel over and die soon. Strago is our man, Blue Mage is our game. For Strago to learn a lore, he needs to be in a fight and to see the attack to go off. You can get some lores from the rages, but for the most part, I'll assume he learns it without Gao's help. We'll still be needing help from Realm for when she uses Sketch or Control, but we'll get over that when we actually get there. Strago's a bit of a weird case because we get him so late in the game, almost right before the World of Ruin. So he's only really going to be a threat in the back half of the game, so the ranking is going to be an overall score out of 20 as we go through the 24 lores. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume you get him as fast as possible in the World of Ruin, just for this list, so that he feels a little bit useful. Deal? At number 24, we have Forcefield, a 1 out of 20. This ability negates an entire element on the field, both for you and the enemy. So if you used it 8 times, only physicals and non-elemental damage would really be worth doing since everything else would do 0. This move, in all honesty, is just straight booty cheeks. You can't learn it until you get to Fiend in Kefka's Tower. This is one of the last 3 bosses that you fight before the final fight. So you're basically getting this lore so that you can use it pretty much only once unless you decide to leave Kefka's Tower before the very final boss fight. And even then, I see absolutely no reason why you'd actually use this. At number 23, we have Reflect? 1 out of 20. If an enemy has Reflect status on, you can use this to inflict blind, slow, and silence on them. So that's cool. Pretty sure you could just do things that ignore Reflect and go about your day, but I guess if you're a status ailment fiend, this could be useful like, I don't know, 3 times throughout your playthrough? Except not really. You're only going to learn this in Kefka's Tower. Dark Force or Daedalus in the tower will teach you. Kaiser Dragon and Zervin in the Dragon's Den, if you're playing the GBA version, will also teach this to you. Dualahan could teach it, but not exactly sure how you're going to have Strago before you actually get the airship. Honestly, this move feels pretty useless as well. Coming in next, we have Tranfusion. 1.5 out of 20. This move is about as cool as the Soul Spiral Blitz. Strago will restore the HP and MP fully to a single ally, as well as removing all status ailments. However, Strago will die, he will lose all of his MP, and he will be removed from the fight permanently. It's another one of those last-ditch effort spells, and other than just finding out what it does when I first used it as a kid, I've never used this spell again. You can learn it from an Intangier, but only through the means of control, which means that this is a World of Ruin exclusive spell. If you don't want to control an Intangier, you can learn it from the Junk enemy in Kefka's Tower, or the Moose enemy just outside Kolingen, which is much more feasible. So even though you can get it somewhat easily, this move still sucks. At 21, we have Self-Destruct. 2 out of 20. If you've ever played Pokemon, you'll have an idea about what this move is about. How it works here is you do the damage equal to your current HP to the enemy, and then you die. However, unlike Tranfusion, you can revive Strago afterwards and continue on with your life. You also have World of Balance access to this spell through the balloons in the Burning House, and that's the earliest access you can get it. This is also the first time you actually use Strago, and I think it's the game showing you how you can actually learn lores. I'm not entirely sure why you'd want someone in your party to die to do damage when you could just do damage, but with Strago being revivable afterwards, at least it's not that bad. Next up, we have Revenge Blast. 2.5 out of 20. If you build Strago to have a lot of HP, this move can be pretty decent, I suppose. It does damage based off of max HP minus current HP. So it's almost the exact opposite of Self-Destruct. This is a magical attack, so it does hit vanished enemies as well. Strago starts with this move initially, so it doesn't matter who you can learn it from, because you're already going to have it. At 19, we have Lvl3 Confuse. 3 out of 20. As the game suggests, if an enemy is a level divisible by 3, they can get hit by this and be confused. You can learn this from the Trappers, which are in the Magitech Factory. Keep in mind that name, we're going to see it a few times. The main issue that arises from this attack is this. You have to know what level every enemy is, or waste a turn hoping for a confuse. Noise Blaster does this without needing to learn it, and without knowing the level of every enemy. However, this move can get you some mileage if you are aware of every enemy's levels, and I guess that is where it gets some of its use. Right after that, we have another one of these level spells with Lvl5 Death. Just like the move before, anything that has a level divisible by 5, they will die. You can learn this from the trappers as we mentioned before, and that means you can get it pretty early. That being said, the list is pretty underwhelming for what can be hit by this. I haven't super looked into what happens if you half the level with another spell and then use Lvl5 Death on it or not, and to be honest, I really don't intend to. I just remember taking the peek at the list my first time was like, oh, alrighty then. The reason that this is above the Lvl3 Confuse is because something will actually die if you cast it, even if the list isn't amazing. Number 17 is bringing in Roulette, 4 out of 20. This might seem like a funny choice, and it might be a little bit of a small meme, but I find this move pretty hilarious. A cursor will fly around and randomly land on someone, party, or enemy, and they will die. So it's unselectable Lvl5 Death that could also just kill yourself. Not great if you outnumber the enemy, but if you are outnumbered with a large pack, it's a higher chance to pick one of the enemies instead of you, obviously. You can sketch this ability off of an Onion Knight from Magitech Factory, which means it does have World of Balance access. It's still not that useful, but it gets ranked a little bit higher, basically for the meme potential, and it can kill anything. Oh boy, we have some more death spells. Here we have Doom, 5 out of 20. This move is an interesting concept. It's non-instant death that doesn't cast damage. You cast it on an enemy, and they will die in 20 seconds. It's roulette that you get to choose the target with, and then you get to see what will eventually happen. Obviously, you could just do damage and kill the enemy as well. You could learn this via the Zombie Dragon Rage, but since we talked about no rages earlier on, your next best bet would be Nalapa when you're leaving the floating continent. It's a guaranteed first turn, so you can't miss it. It's less memey roulette, but it does take a while to die, and you're just kind of sitting there watching them die. Oh baby, we're gonna need a mint for this one. Bad Breath, 6 out of 20. This is a move made for the status ailment lovers. The classic Malboro attack from many games prior to this, and now we get to have it in this one too. It inflicts blind, poison, imp, confuse, sleep, and silence, leaving an enemy feeling very sad and alone. Funny enough, a Malboro is the fastest way to get this spell as well. Personally, I rarely use this spell since I'd rather just see big funny numbers pop up and enemies die on screen, but the colors on this move are pretty cool. We mentioned this move a little bit earlier on, but here we have Dischord, 7 out of 20. This move will half a target's level, but it fails on enemies that have death immunity. This is decently useful as pretty much every attack uses your level in the damage formula, so by halving the level, the damage will greatly reduce. So this can actually be a pretty good defensive spell, and you can learn it in the World of Balance. Your best bets to learn it are from a satellite who will use it on its 12th turn, or a chaser, an enemy that looks like the satellite, but from Magitech Factory. There are better things a guy could do, but if you want to play it nice and safe, use this ability. Unlucky number 13 brings in Rippler, 8 out of 20. This attack is pretty gimmicky, but if used properly, can help you get ahead for free basically. Essentially, the target and the caster will swap all statuses, both negative and positive. You can learn this at the earliest from some good old toady boys, either the Gigantoad in World of Ruin or the Leapfrogs in World of Ruin. Leapfrogs are quite common and show up in packs of 4, so that's probably your best bet. This can be just as good to steal some good statuses, but you can also use it to ditch off some bad statuses. Fun spell, but lots of better options out there. Oh, this is another classic. 1000 Needles. 9 out of 20. Honestly, this move isn't that great. By the time you get it, you're usually doing way more than 1000 damage. That being said, if you're facing an enemy with really high defense or evasion, let's say a Cactuar, this move is for you. Also really good in some challenge runs. It's pretty niche, but at least it always does consistent damage. Brain Pans are probably your earliest bet to get this off of the floating continent. Have fun with it and let me know of some niche uses that you guys like to use it from, because other than the low level runs, I couldn't really think of anything else. Just outside the top 10 we have Lvl4 Flare, 10 out of 20. This move is pretty sick, but it's also pretty situational. It requires knowing the level of all the enemies again, but boy howdy did this spell hit hard. It also ignores split damage and ignores defense. I believe this should also ignore reflect, but let me know if I'm wrong on this, as I couldn't really find out. So this does non-elemental damage, so this means that nothing can absorb or negate it. And it can hit everything on the screen, assuming everything is divisible by level 4. The only thing holding this back is the fact that you do need something to be a numeral of level 4. This is taught from our dear friend Trapper, and I believe with that, he has taught us everything that he can. The poor little gaffer. Starting off the top 10, we have level Holy, 11 out of 20. Now, just because we're done with the Trapper doesn't mean we're done with our level spells. This spell is a little bit weird. The divisible level is based off of the one spot in your money. So if you can keep it at a 1, it will literally hit everything always. It again ignores split damage and reflect. While Dual Hand would technically be your first spot to learn this, you can't have Strago for that fight. Again. So sadly, you can't just get the spell until you meet the Allurian Rider in the Dreamscape. Definitely worth the pickup, especially if you can keep an eye on your gil. You can totally abuse it that way, because this spell hits hard. At number 9, we bring in Quasar, 12 out of 20. Even though this looks like a possibly Earth spell, it's actually non-elemental. This spell isn't very easy to get, however. Your odds of getting this are you can either go to Goddess, which means there really isn't much game left to play, or you can fight a Dark Force and just sit there forever and hope that he uses it. Dark Force is a good enemy if you just want to sit back and learn a ton of lore spells, and this is one of the big ones that you'd want to learn from him. This does mean that your only access is in Kefka's Tower though, which is quite late in the game. This is a pretty good move, but considering the next one, the next one's just so much better altogether. Coming in, we have Quasar 2.0, or Grand Delta. This move is pretty strong, and it looks pretty sick. It's basically earlier, better Quasar. It actually reminds me of a boss from another game. Meg... something. Anyway, you can only get this move from one boss, which is Hydon in Strago's side quest. This move does bomb the enemies pretty freaking hard, as it ignores defense and is non-elemental as well. The issue is you only have the one shot to learn it, and sometimes it can take forever to get it. It does hit harder, but it also costs quite a bit more MP. That being said, it can be used for some real good offense, so that's why it's making the top 10. For number 7, we have Traveler, 14 out of 20. This is a decently strange move. This attack does more damage based on the number of steps you've done in-game. It doesn't matter where the steps were taken, just that you have taken it. The calculation for the damage is number of steps taken divided by 32. The even more interesting part is the longer you play, the more MP it will cost. The calculation for that is total minutes played divided by 30. You can control an Unseelie to learn it, or you can just sketch an Intangier if you want to get in the World of Balance. Typically this move will suck until you put the time into making it good, but it can be some good consistent damage later on in the game. Next up we got Tsunami, 15 out of 20. This is a move that is water elemental, which we rarely get. You can get it decently early and it's only a little bit weaker than Quasar, so it is still a decent move. You can learn this in the Ancient Cave either by a random enemy called an Inu, and if not, you can learn it from the Blue Dragon, as that's the opener move. It ignores split damage, which is always nice, and you get some decent mileage out of it, as the Blue Dragon isn't tough nor very hard to get to. This is another pretty cool looking spell for what it's worth. At number 5, we have Stone, 16 out of 20. You gotta love spells that you don't have to put any effort to in this game, and this is one of them. Strago starts with it. The biggest thing about this is it does 8 times damage to an enemy with the same level as Strago. And the move isn't super weak. It has a spell power of 40 with the potential to be a spell power of 320, which is absolutely nuts. This does mean you need to know the enemy levels, but if you do, oh baby, that damage is gonna roll in crazy. Even if you don't get that 8 times damage, it's still pretty decent damage that also inflicts Confuse on them if they're susceptible, and it hits multiple targets. Don't go sleeping on this spell at all. At 4, we have Aqua Breath, 17 out of 20. This is another spell that you start off with initially, and it has a pretty high spell power of 71. It does suffer from split damage, but for something that you start off with, we can't really get super picky about it. Interestingly enough, this move is dual typed at water and wind, so you get twice the chance of something being weak to it. Strago just seems to have all the elements that we don't normally have access to via black magic. If you don't put a lot of work into Strago, this move can take you pretty far along with Stone. Let the power of the Bubble Beam take us to the promised land, baby. Our first spell bringing in the podium is White Wind, 17.5 out of 20. Sexy, sexy heals. You can learn this shortly after getting Strago in the Esper Caves from an enemy called Venobenu. Holy moly. And he just uses it naturally. This move will heal everyone for the same amount that the caster has as current HP. There's a few moves that are based off of Strago's HP that maybe actually having a high HP build might not be a terrible idea now that I'm thinking about it. But that's all there really is to say about this move. You can learn it fast, keep that HP high, big dummy heals over the entire party. Wham bam, thank you ma'am. The runner-up today is Aero, 18 out of 20. One thing I learned from making this list is this move is deceptively strong. It hits as hard as a tier 3 elemental spell, and it's wind elemental, so you can abuse that weakness on some bosses or enemies as well. You can learn this from the Storm Dragon, which is quite easy to get to in the World of Ruin. This is a pretty strong spell to have in your arsenal and quite easy to get decently early, or at least early for what I would consider Strago, especially for how strong it is. It does suffer from split damage, as the other tier 3 elemental spells do, which means you only get to see the dummy high numbers on single target enemies. For reference, this has a spell power of 125 and Grand Delta is 84. And this spell costs 2/3 the amount of MP as Grand Delta. Coming in as the big winner today is Mighty Guard, 19 out of 20. Here we have the best defensive spell in the game. Why is that? Because it casts Shell and Protect all at once on everyone. All you need to do to learn this is you need to sketch a land rate in the World of Ruin and boom. Don't need to worry about damage much anymore with all this damage reduction. This makes potentially scary boss fights much better, and it saves you relic spots if you're worried about Shell or Protect relics. If you want Strago in your party, these past 3 to 5 spells would be the reason as to why he would even need to be in the party. This is a pretty pricey spell, but you know what they say, you cannot put a price on safety. And there it is, kids. The lores have been spoken to the people. How do we feel about this list? Some were difficult to place, and they may feel a little controversial, so let me know your thoughts and opinions. Thank you for coming to this TED Talk about an old man and his magic. Feel free to hit the subscribe button below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.